This is Marriage on the Half Shell, Raw and Exposed. Well, we decided to name tonight's podcast Happily Ever After, even though we're not going to be talking about that in particular.
You won't live happily ever after. Just because marriages work.
Yeah.
But it's not bad.
No, it's not. No.
It's not a bad
purposeful work. So here's the gist. This one might take a while. We actually took quite a bit of time last night to kind of run through this, and we made a lot of points, and I think we're going to try to hit most of them tonight. So I'm really not sure how long this one's going to be. We may run through them really quick, and we may go on tangents. I'm not really sure. But it's just this current trend. I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't know how to define it really. It's this current generation of young people, and probably a lot of millennials. They've grown up thinking that happiness is the goal. Just being happy is the goal.
Yeah.
And then when they're not, they automatically jump to, if I'm not happy, I must be depressed.
Okay.
There's something wrong. Right?
At least they think there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Not happy.
Right.
And they don't try to work through it.
No.
And I really don't think it's just the latest generation or millennials. 18-year-olds to 30s.
More like mid-30s.
Whatever.
Whatever.
I think this can happen to anyone.
Oh, it can. But it's just gotten a lot more prevalent. Well, I honestly think a lot of it has to do with social media.
I think that drives it.
Yeah.
And we can talk about what that is.
Right.
Once you define happiness.
Right.
Or what the culture thinks it is.
Right. So I actually looked up the word happy in the dictionary, and it's characterized by pleasure, contentment, or joy. That sounds innocuous enough, right?
Right.
But much like a lot of other words in our current society, it's gone through a rebranding. It's been redefined, and it means something like dopamine hits, how many can I get and how fast?
Yeah.
It's more like that.
Right. When we talked about it last night, it was elation.
Yes. And we are going to use that word probably a lot when we're discussing this, because that's what people think it should be.
It seems that way, where people think they need to be high all the time.
All the time, yeah.
And that's why you can say dopamine hits, or, even a minor elation like I see 100 likes on my post.
Sure.
That makes you happy in the elated sense.
Right.
Much more than 2 likes on a post or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're going to correlate it to marriage, since that's what this podcast is about. And we're seeing a trend of a lot of marriages are ending because someone is not happy anymore.
Right. According to that cultural definition.
Yes.
The elated definition.
Yeah, my spouse does not satisfy me and make me happy anymore. Therefore, this relationship is now toxic or no good, and I need to be happy.
Right.
I need to be happy, so I've got to move on from this. And it's just, that's not the way marriage is supposed to be.
Well, it's not the way life is supposed to be.
No, it's not. But we're
definitely
trying
not
to,
marriage.
yeah.
But I just want to, I don't know, relating it to your whole life.
Yeah.
Marriage is a big part of it.
Right.
Right. So people are destroying their marriages.
Yeah.
Because they think my spouse is supposed to make me happy, and they're not doing it.
Which is not true. We will go into that in a little bit here.
and therefore I need to go do something that will make me happy.
Yes.
Or find someone else to make me happy.
Yeah.
I think that's really, as it relates to marriage, is the problem.
And you're just dragging your unhappy, sorry little butt into another relationship with the same problems that you left the previous relationship with, and the grass isn't greener.
True.
It's really not.
And you're expecting this new person
Yes, to make you
happy.
Yeah.
But as you hinted, it's not your spouse's responsibility to make you happy.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you don't serve together, help each other, all of that.
Right.
But happiness is, I think I described it when we talked about this, is happiness is your responsibility. It's in your head.
Yeah.
Right.
We're going to get into that
But
too.
yeah, but I'm not the happiness that the culture says. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
okay. I mean, if you're constantly high on elation, in the elated sense,
Right.
I mean, we're just not designed to work that way.
No, we're not. We're literally, our brain is not wired to work that way.
Right. I mean, it's just that's where addictions come from.
Yeah.
Whether it's a drug or whether it's social media or something like that, attention.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you chase after,
Right.
then you that's not the way we're designed to work.
Yeah.
As humans, and it burns us out. And the reason we become addicted is because once you've had so much physically, the hormones or whatever it is, that you just need more and more.
Yeah.
Which is why addicts are addicted and they don't want to give it up. And then there's people who are addicted to whatever some non-drug thing.
Right. Well, again, we're gonna.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, your marriage is not supposed to be defined by dopamine hits, meaning you're not supposed to be constantly on a high with your spouse. It's walking out your life day to day, and
Yeah.
that's not always exciting and fun, and some of it's kind of rough, when you first get married, there's a lot of serotonin and oxytocin and a lot, there's a lot of that. But it will, because your brain is not meant to function on that 24/7, it will kind of dip down and kind of balance out after a while. And then you're just, moving through life together. And that's actually what it's supposed to be. And so, what did you say? The average is like 18 months?
I mean,
Something
I've heard
like
studies
that.
like that. The honeymoon phase
Yeah.
of a marriage is anywhere between 12 and 18 months, plus or minus, all right? But
I mean, it wasn't for us.
no, but I mean, are we an anomaly? I don't know how long it was, but
No, because a lot of couples get pregnant right away.
yeah, so the honeymoon phase ended
Yeah,
quicker.
rather abruptly when I started puking everywhere.
Yeah.
Just,
But the point is,
yeah.
that sense of connection, belonging, and all that is
Yeah.
there.
Right.
But it subsides after a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And as you settle into your marriage routine,
Yeah.
you get to know each other more,
Right.
that sort of thing.
So, that part of the definition there was contentment and joy. Well, the thing about those two things is they take effort. That those two things, they don't just happen. They very rarely happen just organically. Those are
Right.
things that generally have to be worked at, but once you cultivate them, they're a lot longer lasting.
They're
And
the
they-
more steady,
Yeah.
steady feelings that
Yeah.
you have. And
Right.
when we say joy, we're not talking about the elation. I just won $1 million and I'm, walking on the moon, or whatever. It's a steadiness where generally we operate.
Yeah.
And so when something does come along, sure, you can be happy because, okay, you want a truck, or you want a your kid won a game, or in sports, or who knows, your favorite football team won, or
Yeah.
you met somebody new and you're making a new friend, and there's this initial pleasure in that, and elation in that, and it's great, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Or when something bad happens, what we see as bad, then your mood dips, but then it comes back up, even though the problem isn't solved yet,
Yeah.
might not be solved yet. You're still contented, right? It's like life is okay. We can handle this, and then you have this attitude of, it's like we can work through this, and we
Yeah.
can handle it, and we can
Right.
get through it together, and that's what you're supposed to be doing in a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
not falling apart because something went wrong,
Right.
and life's not perfect.
Right. So I also looked up the definition of contentment, since that was supposed to be a synonym for happiness,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it means to be satisfied with what you have. Now that doesn't sound sexy at all,
No.
you know? But it really should be the goal. You know, I'm happy with what I have. I don't need any more to make
Right.
me happy. I don't need anything else necessarily.
Right.
Right.
We talked about it in terms of needs being met.
Right. So, yeah, calm joy or quiet pleasure that we feel when our needs are just met,
Right.
you know?
Right. And it doesn't mean that we can't try to, how can I say it, make things better.
All the time.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
all
wrong
the
with
time.
that.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the overarching goal.
Right.
Right. You shouldn't avoid feeling content or satisfied, or whatever, until you've reached some future goal of,
Right.
whatever, being able to retire early, or, I mean, I'm just throwing out examples, but
Mhm.
so.
So that, you know, the other point I made here was people who believe that they should be constantly happy are actually, will find out pretty quickly that they're not.
Right. I mean, they're always chasing it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Rather than
Because they're
Yeah.
unhappy.
Right.
And the things that they think are making them happy don't really make them happy. And I go back to, the example of social media, 100 likes or 1,000 likes, or X number of subscribers, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not really what's making you happy. You feel this little blip of elation, but you're not happy. So what do? You start chasing it again. I got to get more,
Yeah.
more. That's
Right.
what happens.
Right.
Okay.
So the way this, or do we want to go over this?
We can.
Okay. So your marriage, once you've reached that kind of steady, contented joy, you really should be focusing on your purpose as a couple, right? But part of that purpose is looking out for each other, loving your spouse the way they need to be loved, not the way you want to love them, and not not saying you need to be loved the way I do. Like you and I have different needs as far as that's concerned,
Right.
right? Like I was talking to one of my daughters, and she said that she loves hanging out with her husband, and they've been married 2 years. 2
Yeah.
years. 2 years. They now have a baby. She said, I love hanging out with them, and I love talking, and we just love being together. But it dawned on me that sometimes he just needs a couple hours to putter around the garage or repair something or do something around the house and just listen to his podcast. He just needs that time, you
Right.
know. And she was like, that's fine. You know, she'll take the baby and go out for a walk or go to her other sister's house or come over here or whatever it is, you know.
Sure.
Just trying to, so that's just and that's not the way she needs to be loved. She likes communication and she likes being with him and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And he will do that for her.
Right.
But it's a matter of recognizing what your spouse needs in that regard.
Yeah.
Right. So, in the Bible is very specific about, you know, husbands love your wives and wives respect your husbands. And that gets misinterpreted way too many times in way too many different directions. And it really doesn't need to be, because for a man, respect is love. They're the same. They're kind of synonymous.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, they're forms
Yeah.
of love. And a man, so if you show respect, which is the opposite of contempt,
Yes.
and we've talked about how contempt
It really is that basic.
destroys marriages.
Yes.
Respect keeps marriages together. And
Yeah.
that's just the way a man generally needs to be loved, right?
That doesn't mean that he doesn't need affection or,
Right.
you know, any,
Right.
yeah,
But if there's contempt, then there isn't respect.
right.
I guess contempt is. I don't know if it's just a lack of respect or definitely the negative of respect.
I kind of think it's the negative of respect. I
Okay.
really do.
Yeah, because it can be active.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where a wife puts her husband down or whatever.
Gossips about him, rolls her
Gossip.
eyes.
Yeah.
I actually heard it was a little piece of I don't know if it was a social media video. And this woman, well, this is really horrible. She was recording her husband when he got home from work. And he was like, "Did you make any dinner?" And she said, "I'm not your mom. I don't have to make you dinner." And he was like, You were home all day with the kids, and I have been out working. I worked a 12-hour shift. I just got home, and there's no dinner." And she just said, "No, I'm not your mom. I'm not going to make you dinner." That is contempt. That's contempt.
Yeah.
You know, that may be on the far end of what we're talking about, but I do see a lot of that. You know?
Right. And you mentioned kids. I was all day home with the kids.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, kids, a particular day, the kids might have taken so much of your time that you couldn't make dinner, so you could have prepared something. I think in this case, the wife had prepared herself dinner and
Yes.
eaten it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. She made herself and the kids
and the
dinner.
kids dinner. So she had time to do it.
Yes.
But she did not make anything for her husband.
Right, right. And that's just that's basic respect.
Yeah.
You know, if
That's
you
just
if
basic.
you're staying home with the kids all day, you know, then having something for your husband to eat when he gets home from working all day is just that's pretty base level stuff. That's not even I don't know. It's not
Yeah.
even high levels of whatever or trying to meet bigger needs. That's a pretty basic need. Feed your husband. That's pretty basic,
Sure.
you know? So that's kind of where it starts, you know? But your husband also wants to feel some gratitude for the fact that he works very hard,
Yeah.
right? Affection, yes, it's very important for both of us, right?
Right.
Your husband would like to feel appreciated,
Yeah.
you know, and this is the gratitude thing. It's like when you go out and cut the grass and you come in, I'll say thank you for cutting the grass and taking care of the yard.
Yeah.
And that's really all I say, but it's enough,
Yeah.
you know.
Definitely.
You're not looking for me to fawn all over
Oh,
you.
no,
and
no. But it goes both ways. So that's, in a sense, we kind of made, a couple of lists.
Yeah,
But we said love is two sides of the same coin, right?
right.
Man, it's, as we said, respect.
Yeah,
But a lot of it's very similar. So women, once you go through the list for
so
women, generally.
we like to feel protected,
Yeah.
you know. When you communicate with women, when you ask them questions, when you have conversations with them, it makes them feel valued. You know, men may not crave the conversation as much as women do. Women are we're conversational beings.
Yeah.
You know, we like to feel valued.
Yeah.
You know, like what we're doing, whether we're out in the workforce or whether we're at home with the kids, we like to feel that we're valued one way or the other. The gratitude goes both ways, you know.
Yep. Support.
Yeah, so, well, both of it, I put supported in our goals in both of them. Like, you and I have some separate goals,
Right.
you know, because I work one kind of a job and you work the other kind of a job, another kind of a job.
Okay.
You know, so we have different goals.
Yeah, but we support each other in what we want to do with our lives.
Yeah.
But we keep them, also we keep everything compatible with our lives.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
It's like you're not going to suddenly decide I want to be an artist in New York and I'm moving there.
No,
And it's like, well, we own a house here and our kids are here and, you know, that sort of thing. And I think this could be either spouse, but they get what you'd call a wild hair and just run off. And it's like, I think I need to be more fulfilled this way. And it's like, you know what? You're missing the entire point of
Yeah.
where you are.
right.
You fulfilled is another word, right? I think that
Right.
would fall under the happiness, contentment. You can figure out a way to be fulfilled where you are,
Right.
because what is anyway. Okay.
So the way we've defined it is, you know, happiness. This is the way the culture sees it now. If I'm not constantly, we're going to use that word, elated, then I must be depressed.
Right.
It's one or the other. So I feel like a lot of people in this generation have missed the contentment part, that steady contentment part, right? We're not, yeah, we already said we're not wired for this. You know, that's not the way our brains are wired to work. It's
Yeah.
constant elation, just, you know,
Right.
always
you
up,
can't
always
be
happy.
high all the time.
Yeah, you
Right.
can't. So, you know, a lot of married couples will get into this pattern where they'll blame the other one when they don't feel elated all the time.
Yep.
Right. So I'm not happy anymore is something you hear a lot. You know, it's this, I need to work on myself. I'm not fulfilled and I need to work on myself. I'm not happy anymore.
And there's nothing wrong with working on yourself,
Right.
but it's always within the context of your marriage, right? But what you're saying, I think, is when we see people say that, it's I want to remove myself from the marriage, or it's out of the context of the marriage.
Yeah.
I'm going to go separate myself and work on myself, and
Yeah.
and that's really kind of a selfish.
There's nothing wrong with working on yourself. It's the context
That's what
in
I'm
which you
saying.
do
It's
it.
the context. So
Yeah.
if you do it outside of the context of your marriage, you're basically looking for an excuse to leave the marriage, because you don't want to do the work to make marriage work.
Yeah.
You just want to go find the next thing
Mm-hmm.
that will make you feel elated,
Yeah.
but you'll
Yeah.
never find that contentment that way.
No, you won't. So
All right.
So you're blaming the other person in your marriage for not making you happy when it's really not their job, right?
Right. We mentioned
That
that.
they're, you know, you're supposed to do all these things we just said, treat each other with respect, have gratitude, all of those things, which is going to produce the contentment we're talking about. But it's really not, your happiness is in your head. You decide whether
Right.
you're happy or not. Right?
Right. You develop that within yourself, and that's the contentment we're talking about.
Right. Right.
Because little things happen. Things come along that may make you feel the elation, right? But they come along, right? And then they're gone.
Right.
And then you keep steady on,
Yeah.
right? The contentment, if you've worked toward that.
Yeah.
rather than chase that constant elation.
Right. So, I'm gonna you came up with this quote,
What?
so I'm gonna let you read it.
Which one?
This one.
We're looking at our notes. If it okay, here I said if it becomes my job to make you happy, then you cease to sacrifice for me, and I sacrifice everything for you, and the relationship is off balance.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, I remember talking about this.
Yeah.
Where one spouse, and this could go either way, but one spouse becomes the slave to the other, or the doormat for the other.
Yeah.
Right. While the other is constantly demanding something
Mm-hmm.
to be happy,
Yeah.
and that those demands gets more and become more and more louder.
Right.
And the other person ceases to be their own person, and there's that's what I mean by there's no balance in the relationship anymore.
Right.
And we see this, I think, in a lot of times we see it in young women, college age, or maybe a little older, where they expect everything from a man.
Yes.
I'm talking about women now, but it could go both ways. But
Yeah.
what I see primarily is this,
Yeah.
is where they expect the man to bring everything, but they provide nothing. They
Right.
just think their presence in the relationship is sufficient, and that doesn't even necessarily mean affection or anything like that.
Right.
It's just I'm here, I'm the queen, right?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that. Like I said, it could go both ways, but I'm predominantly seeing it in young women.
Well, I mean that was kind of gonna be our next
Well, let's get into it.
tangent we're going on here. So yeah, that's the trend we're seeing with young women, where they feel entitled to a man's income, affection, but they think that their presence is enough.
Yeah.
Whereas, when you're scoping out somebody you might want to marry, you're looking for, what am I going to contribute and what are you going to contribute? What are we both
Yeah.
bringing to this relationship? It's not, it's up to you to do everything to make me happy, but I get to sit back and do nothing. Right. And that is a trend that I've seen with a lot of younger women. And it's just this culture of contempt that they've been brought up in for men. A lot of these young women didn't have a dad. Dad wasn't around. Dad wasn't part of their life. Or, they shut him out. Or he was in the house and mom just had nothing but contempt for him, and this is what she grew up with.
Yeah.
And dad just gave her whatever she wanted. So she's grown up thinking this is what men do.
Yeah.
Men sacrifice everything, and women just get to sit on a throne and do nothing.
Right.
And contribute nothing.
Exactly.
And we're going to get into the male side of this in a minute.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
are
just going to
gonna
keep...
get on there, but we're just...
But, you what are you bringing as a woman to the relationship? Do you have any skills? Can you cook? Can you take care of a home? Do you respect the man that you're about to marry? And I mean respect him, not be a slave to him, not be beneath him.
Right.
But do you respect him as a fellow human being? Or do you have contempt for him because he's a man?
Right. I mean, we're all equally valuable as human beings. That's
Right.
the way we should see it.
Yeah.
Right. And if one spouse has a contempt for the other, then they're raising themselves up above the other person.
Right.
And meaning they're more valuable and the other person is less valuable. And that's, a lot of bad things have happened in history when people think that way about other people. But in your marriage, it's destructive.
Yeah, it really is. So
Okay.
on the male side of this, though, you know, the average age that most boys are seeing porn these days, I read somewhere, is 11, and I actually think that over the past couple of years, it's dropped even younger than that. And that's just that's something I can't even comprehend. I have a 9-year-old grandson,
Yeah.
and I can't even wrap my head around that he could have seen. He hasn't. His parents are very careful about what he sees, and they have a lot of serious discussions with him about right and wrong and morals and all of this kind of thing. So to my knowledge, he has not seen anything along those lines. But let's face it, you sit your kid in front of whatever's, well, yeah, Disney's in there, a lot of these shows and YouTube and all of this, and guess what? They're slipping it in. They are.
They're slipping things in to sexualize children.
Yeah.
And we as parents should be absolutely against it.
Yeah, we should.
And if you really survey the landscape out there, it's in libraries, it's in schools, it's
Yes.
in TV,
Social media,
everywhere.
all the social media, everywhere.
So you just have to be real careful.
Right.
And I mean really be careful.
Yeah.
Right. Don't assume any program is good. If you're gonna put your kids in front of a screen, then we don't really think that's great anyway.
No.
But it's like you got to be there with them.
Yeah, you do.
Because they'll get stuff snuck in
Yeah.
that's being normalized in the culture, and they'll learn to think it's just normal. It's
Mhm.
not. It's this thing, and then they end up getting. Well, like you said, they end up moving as men. Since we're talking about young men, moving toward looking at porn,
Right.
And all that, and we talked. You took some notes
Yeah,
about what
yeah.
that does.
So, I mean, obviously, porn is awful, and it messes with a grown man's brain,
Everybody's
right? But what I'm saying is, you expose a child to that, and what are you doing to this child? This child isn't even aware of being sexualized, really,
Right.
because they don't know what that is, right?
Right,
9-year-old
they don't.
boys are supposed to think girls have cooties. That's how the world is supposed to work. For the most part. They're supposed to think girls are gross. So, but we're taking these young boys and exposing them to this stuff. So they grow up in this world where they see women being treated with contempt.
Right.
And then, let's face it, boys are being treated with contempt in their own homes and in schools
Yeah.
at this point. So they grow up in this society where they see women as objects rather than human beings. They grow up resenting the society around them and themselves. You looked up a whole bunch of stats this morning on fatherlessness.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd have to pull that back up, but I
Right.
don't have it in front of me. But it doesn't look good. I mean, there's.
Right.
I do remember one statistic of something like over 40% of newborns are born into a fatherless home.
Right.
Right? There's some others, but father, I don't think we need to get too much into that right now during this podcast. But fatherlessness does a lot of damage to children.
Yeah.
Related to infant mortality, related to whether you're going to be in a gang or not, or be a criminal or not, or
Well, it's also
graduate
like
or not.
mental development and
Mental
physical
development.
development and all,
There's just
yeah.
a ton of stuff. So
Right.
we'll go into that some other time. But just imagine. Okay, I was just thinking. So just imagine you're a young boy, and you're being raised in this home where either dad is gone, or weak,
Mm-hmm.
and mom has contempt for the dad, if he's
And men in
there,
general.
and men in general.
Yeah.
So think about it. I mean, you're a young boy being raised by your mom who has contempt for you, and it's. I mean, how do you think they feel? What do you think happens?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then they see porn and they see women treated as objects, so they begin to have contempt the other way, and
Right.
Then nobody knows how to have a relationship anymore.
Right.
Right.
Right. So this is why we're seeing this. You know, the marital statistics are bad right now. Like, young people are not pursuing serious relationships that lead to marriage.
Right.
Statistically, anymore. It's
Yeah. But the point is, and as we relate this to marriage, the point is, whether it's young men or young women, without marriage, nobody knows how to relate to one another.
yeah.
Right. And
Right.
then you raise your kids not knowing how to relate to one another, and you train them the same way, and it just perpetuates the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So marriage provides that stability and all of the benefits that we kind of touched on.
Right.
And we'll get to another time.
So
Okay.
this is, we said this is called the unhappiness cycle. We've got young women, they're raised with contempt for men. They think they should be treated like queens. And so they go out and they find a young man, and the young man either doesn't treat them like a queen or does, so her contempt for him grows,
Right.
because that is what happens. And then you've got young men who go out and they try to treat women like porn stars and find out that's not really how things work. So they're just constantly disappointed, and they just decide to withdraw and not pursue relationships at all.
Right. And we're
Right.
seeing a movement there.
There is definitely a movement there. I think that we kind of covered that in our last podcast about the red pill.
Yeah.
Red pill marriage. That's
Yes, we
that's this whole thing. That's what it all is. So men and women are raised this way and expected to just get married and create stable homes, and
Right.
it can't happen. It cannot happen. There's this term called generational trauma, and it exists for a reason.
Yeah.
It really does. I struggled with it, for quite a while. My brothers have been through it,
Yeah.
and they struggled a little bit more with it than I did, but I had you.
Oh. I'm glad I was there.
I'm glad you were there.
I
too.
didn't know what I was doing, but I'm glad I was there.
Okay. Anyway, but that term exists for a reason.
Yeah.
It does.
It does.
You've got these generations now of young men and of men and women who have second or third generation don't know how to treat each other.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, we've talked about this before. We're Christians, and even in the Christian church, we're trying to find a church right now, and we go to this church, and it's like, oh, do you have a marriage ministry? No. Why?
Or why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
You have all these married couples in this church. Are you telling me that all these marriages are perfect? Because I'll tell you right now, they're not. They are not.
And we've seen that.
Yes, we
Right.
have. Yeah, we have.
visited churches where it's like, everything looks great. And then you start to see some of the stuff going on with marriages. It's like, what?
It's the polished turd. That's what it is. It is. It's disgusting.
Oh, that's a whole another conversation.
Sure. Yeah, it is. It is. But, I mean, the church should be one of these places where you have thriving relationships and marriages and courtships and kids being raised right and knowing how to set up their own homes and
support
each other
marriages
and support for marriage. It should exist, right? But it doesn't. It just doesn't. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent. So, we've got this, current generation, they have no moral compass.
Right.
right? And this does all correlate back to the happiness thing. Because if you don't have a freaking moral compass, then what are you doing? You're just pursuing one dopamine hit after another that you think is happiness,
Yeah.
but you violated your whole moral fiber, right? And it doesn't lead, it never leads to good things.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but we were talking last night about today's society, at least in what we call the Western state,
Right.
Western countries,
Right.
Europe and the United States, Canada, where we've lost the moral compass. We just haven't lost it. It's been dismantled
Yes.
systematically on purpose.
Yeah.
And we need to recover that.
Yes.
The even parents who are trying to teach that to their kids are battling against the culture, which is
There is no morals.
where there is no morals, right? Because people want to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
So they throw away the I ought to do this and I ought not to do that.
Right.
Because it's, I ought to do what's good and I ought not to do what's bad.
Yeah.
And then they throw out we've thrown out the definition of what's good and what's bad. And
Right.
now we're just like, okay, well, whatever makes me feel good,
Yes.
the elation, and we call it happiness,
Yeah.
but it's really whatever makes me feel good. That's what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
that must be good.
If it feels good, do it. That whole 60s, nonsense.
Right. But that's not, I mean, everybody has their own idea of what makes them feel good.
Yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes we can do very evil things.
Yeah.
And I'm using that word evil because we've decided this is what makes me feel good and that's what counts.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, that's what we're seeing in marriages. And so nobody cares about, their marriage rates have dropped off because nobody wants to make that commitment. Again, nobody knows how to relate to one
Yeah.
another. And then when people do get married, there's the divorce rate, which is too high. And it's a lot of times it's like one spouse has said, instead of communicating with their spouse, the other spouse, they're like, well, I'm not happy.
I'm not happy.
And so I need something else.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you're throwing away. Let's just put it this way: you're throwing away or destroying a number. If you've got kids, even if you don't have kids, you've got parents and parents-in-law, and all
the
rest of
siblings and the family. Yeah.
right? That you're part of this family now, and it's like, let's just destroy that. Who cares? And you think you're just making yourself happy, but you're destroying multiple people's lives,
Yeah.
not just your spouse.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then if you have kids, you're just adding that to them too.
Yes.
Man, we're kind of getting. I mean, we've been real negative.
Well, I think we were going to reel it back in. So take this in another direction here. We saw this. It was a TikTok video I saw it on Twitter, X, whatever it is, a couple of days ago, and I scrolled past it a few times because I was like, oh, here we go again, it's something else. But then I actually stopped and I listened to it, and it was a man had the camera on his wife, and his wife's standing there, and she's holding a baby, and she looks content, she's happy. Yeah. And he said, do you think you would ever cheat on me? And she looked him dead in the eye and went, yeah. Given the opportunity, I think I would. But she said, but then she said, but that is why I don't put myself in those situations. I won't be alone with another man.
Right.
I won't have a friendship I won't have a male close friendship. It was like she went through a number of things and she was like, those are my boundaries. I put up those boundaries because I know myself. And I know everyone is capable of it given
Exactly.
the right set of circumstances. So I put up these boundaries. These are my walls, and I keep them up because I love you and I want to be with you.
Right.
And it just initially he did get upset. He was like, "What? You would?" And then she explained herself,
Yep.
and you could hear him go, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying." And there was a lot of commentary back and forth about, the first comment I saw was, "Don't marry this woman." And then the next comment I saw was from a guy who has another marriage ministry, but he has been married for a long time, and he was like, "No, this is exactly what you want to hear from your wife
Yeah.
because she's right. We're all capable of it."
Right. She recognizes our tendency to do
The bad thing.
the bad
Yeah.
thing,
Yep.
right? Because again, as we talked about, we throw away our moral compass in a sense, where we want to do what we want to do because it feels good,
Because it'll make us happy.
it makes me happy.
Yeah.
So we justify it, even though it's bad,
Yeah.
and so we smart people set up boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's what she was talking about.
Yes.
In the thing, it's like because she was humble, right? I
Yeah, she
recognized
was.
that I could be this way,
Yeah.
just like anyone else.
Yeah.
So to avoid that temptation, I have these boundaries.
Yeah.
And this is what we do.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, we've had the same boundaries.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I think it's worked reasonably well.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I've said it over and over again. I hang out in a gym a lot
Yeah.
with a lot of very fit, handsome men. But I will, I try not to be alone with any of them while I'm there.
Yeah.
If I am, I've got all the doors open. It's like, anybody could walk in at any time. I'm not locking doors and,
Yeah.
trying to, and I'm also not having intimate, deep conversations with any of them. Right. I have one buddy and we kind of hang out together. I work out with him. He's been married as long as we have. You know him.
Yeah.
And we definitely have our boundaries.
Yeah.
We do not. There's lines we do not cross. We have great conversations. But that's all it is.
Yeah.
And I've known him for 8 years or
I
something.
guess so,
It's
yeah.
been a long time. So anyway, yeah, we do. You wouldn't go on a business lunch with somebody from work if it was female.
Right.
Right.
Not alone.
No.
I mean, it would be a group or
Yeah.
just guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think these things kind of can sound weird if you put them in the wrong context. Or people think we're supposed to be free and we can do what we want, and it's like, yeah, that's true. You can do what you want from a freedom perspective, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to realize that the boundaries that we set, generally the boundaries are really wide. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, like I said, I just told you I have conversations with my buddy, and you trust me. I mean, you don't you don't think I'm going to go do
Well, because
something
you have the boundaries.
Yeah,
Right. And we trust each other.
Yeah.
Right? And we've been working on our marriage.
yeah, yeah,
But my point is more. I think people see, if I've got some kind of moral boundary, then that limits me and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, kind of, but not very much.
no,
Because we have a lot of freedom within the boundaries of what's right and wrong.
right,
And I think people get this false vision or false view of right and wrong and think there's so many things we can't do, or we have to act exactly this way or whatever. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with disciplines, self-discipline and all that, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to ramble on about it too much, but The point is, moral boundaries are not bad. And if you think about it, uh, the picture that keeps coming to my mind is a kite.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm usually the one that gets the pictures, but I'd love to hear this.
Well, you've probably heard it before, but you want your kite to fly.
Yeah.
Right. So you have it on a piece of string, and the string is the boundary.
Right.
Right. It cannot detach from the string, and you can't let go of the string because you want your kite to fly, and the kite can fly all over the place as long as it's attached to that string. It can fly.
Right.
Right. And so that's you accomplishing whatever you need to accomplish, whatever you want to accomplish. But you've got this string, which is a boundary to you. I can't leave the boundary of the string.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm able to fly and accomplish this or that.
Right.
Okay. And enjoy this or that and do all these great things as a kite. Right. But as soon as you detach from that string, what happens to a kite?
It's going to fly away, or it's going to crash to the ground,
if
or
it's a real strong wind, it's just going to be, it's going to be blown away and crash somewhere, or it'll just fall out of the sky and crash.
Yeah.
Right? You've given up your boundary, your safety rails, if you will.
Yeah.
And so you crash.
Yeah.
And this is what happens to us. We throw away our moral boundaries, and then you end up ruining your life, ruining other people's lives. And that's the picture that came to my head.
Okay. Okay. So, but the point we're trying to make about the moral boundaries is what you're saying. You can find contentment in those boundaries, right?
Right.
And that's how you should operate. This is how we all should operate.
Yeah.
There's too many people who just, I'm going to do it because it makes me happy. And, we all struggle with it. I still struggle with it from time to time. It's like,
perfected people.
It's Friday night. I can drink a whole bottle of wine if I want to and wind up on the floor. I can. And you're probably not going to do a whole lot to stop me. But let me tell you something. My kite's going to crash and burn the entire weekend if I do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm going to feel like crap. Right? So
then I'll laugh at you.
Yeah, you would. But, there's an example, I know where my boundaries are with this.
Yeah.
And I know that I shouldn't drink too much because I know that's what's going to happen.
People do the stupidest things when they're drunk.
We could tell some stories.
It is, you can ruin your life in one day.
Oh yeah.
If you get drunk, but that's that.
Yeah.
But the point is, I love you, and I'll hold your hair while you're throwing up in the toilet.
But you'll laugh at me.
But I will be laughing at you, right?
Because I did it to myself.
Because you'll be learning your lesson.
Yeah.
I hope.
So, the goal of marriage.
Anyway, let's get back to that.
The goal of marriage is not happiness. It is not. There's going to be happy stuff.
There
right?
Will be
and I'm going to wind this up with a good quote here at the end. That's going to summarize the whole thing. But the goal is not happiness. Yes, your spouse is going to do things that are going to make you happy.
Sure.
That's we should want to do that for each other.
Sure.
Right? But the goal is contentment.
Right.
Which is just this steady,
it's a steady
it's secure, satisfaction,
secure,
security.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what does that take? Gratitude, respect. So we talked about that, the whole list of stuff, right?
And this is beyond the basic human needs have been met, like food, shelter, all that stuff. Relationship, this is what we're getting into. And within relationship, within marriage, the gratitude, the respect, the caring, the communication, that sort of thing.
Right.
And also, we didn't put this in the list, but I'll add, purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So, and you can have multiple purposes, right? to raise your children so they could be good people,
Right.
to serve society in some way, right?
Yeah.
But not to the point, not to the extent where you destroy your marriage and your family, because when you do that, it might seem like you're accomplishing more,
Mm-hmm.
but you really end up accomplishing less, and you do it while not being happy, right? Because
Yeah.
you've let that purpose override or take over. But anyway, so
So,
keep it positive now, right?
right. Self-sacrifice, which is what you were just talking about, right?
Okay.
A marriage is never 50-50. It's not.
Well,
It's not.
it depends on how you define it. I mean, you should each give 100% to the marriage,
Yeah.
which is 50-50, right? It depends on how you look at it. But the point is, you're each equally balanced in the marriage. You're both equally valuable in the marriage.
Right.
Your roles are equally important, whichever roles you choose,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing.
Right.
And you're both giving everything as you can. And then, we've talked about that, where sometimes it's like, okay, one person can't give as much because they're dealing with something, so the other person upholds them and supports them,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And then it goes the other way, and so overall it evens out.
Right. Right. So, and this is another one that I wrote down here. Give up seeking perfection in your spouse. Stop looking at your spouse and thinking they need to be perfect. Neither one of you are going to ever achieve that.
Right.
So there's things like, see these awful memes and posts on social media about, this is what happens when I let my husband load the dishwasher. This is what happens when I leave my husband alone with the kids. And, when she comes home and the house is a mess and the kids running around in their pajamas and, and it's much more beneficial when you're in that kind of situation to step back and go, okay, the dishwasher's loaded. Is everything going to get clean? Then I'm not going to say anything, because it doesn't make any sense to say anything.
Yeah. And who says your way is the only right way?
There's that. And I've talked about, when I would leave the kids with you, which I had to do semi-frequently because my parents were sick a lot.
Yeah.
And there would be days I'd be gone 3, 4, sometimes 5 days at a time.
Times during our marriage, yeah, you were gone.
Yeah.
A
And
while.
one time it was almost 2 weeks.
Right.
But it's like I would get home and I'd look around and the house is relatively clean and the children are all relatively clean and
Dressed.
nothing's burned down and they're dressed and
They
ate. I don't want to know what they ate, but they ate. And I would just move on. I don't want to know.
Right.
Why am I going to ask questions about something? It's like I'm looking for a reason to be angry. If I did that. You know what I mean? I'm looking for a reason to be upset. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. So that's what I'm saying about don't always look to your spouse to be this perfect, to be perfect all the time. It's not going to happen.
And usually it's perfection according to the way you
Yes.
define it and the way you want them to be.
Yeah.
So you become this controlling monster.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that.
No.
Okay,
No.
we spent a lot of time on that one.
Anyway. So I'm going to conclude it with this. This is a quote. This is kind of a summation. Obviously, we've talked about Dr. Peterson a lot, but it's kind of a summation of a lot of what he says about putting your life together and leading a purposeful life.
Right.
Right. And so this is kind of how I've summarized it myself, is don't chase happiness, chase contentment and purpose. Happy moments will happen along the way. Shoot. I didn't
What?
think I was going to cry.
What? Is it that emotional? Happy
a-
moments will happen
Yeah.
along the way.
Be awake and grateful enough to notice them.
There you go. I guess we're done.
We need to be, because I didn't think I was going to get emotional reading that. Shoot.
Okay.
Just, it's a matter of, if you want to be happy, then look for it. You'll find it. You will.
Right. But don't chase it.
Don't chase it. Yes.
Because if you're
a cat chasing your tail. You're a dog chasing your tail. That's exactly what you are. If you're chasing happiness. Or, that's even better.
what?
You're a dog chasing a car. If you're chasing happiness.
Yeah. Most of the time you won't get it.
No.
And someday if you do, the tire is going to run over your head. That's not good. Okay. So we're not going to chase happiness.
No. I think we've learned that. I just hope that that's the message that's conveyed here.
We've said it enough times. We'll work on contentment and purpose.
Yeah.
And happy things will happen along the way, but we're not designed to be constantly elated, so we don't want to burn out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I think that's enough.
Okay. That's a good wrap up, I think.
All right.
All right.
What have we been? This has been
Marriage on the Half Shell.
Ron Exposed. See you next time.